Welcome to the Dr. Berg Healthy Keto and Intermittent Fasting Podcast. Now, here's your host, the man on a mission to take your health to a whole new level. It's Dr. Berg.
One of the most common body types is the adrenal body type. Let me explain. The adrenal gland sits on top of your kidney, and there are two little triangle glands that sit right on top of the kidney, and the purpose of the adrenals is to counter this one thing called stress. So the adrenals have everything to do with stress. Emotional stress, physical stress, infection, you name it. Emotional stress, by the way, like losses, can hit the adrenals 1,000 times more than actual physical stress. And that's why a loss of a loved one can turn into a major problem with your health. So the first problem with this adrenal gland body type is you start developing what's called belly fat. Okay, now this is my nice diagram of belly fat. That's someone standing side with their belly hanging out because they have it's called a pendulous abdomen, a sagging belly. This fat in the belly is 100% coming from cortisol. So cortisol is the hormone that activates fat being stored in your midsection, all right? So stress triggers cortisol, which then makes fat in the stomach. So here's the question. Why is it going there and not somewhere else? That's a good question. Because the location of all the vital organs, like the heart and the liver and kidney, happen to be in your midsection. That's why you gain weight in the belly. Because the body, as a survival mechanism, wants to hold this fat as a way of feeding it. So fat is potential energy. So you're not really fat, you have potential energy. That sounds better. And that's stored around the organs. It's called visceral fat, and visceral fat means the organ fat. So you might have some superficial fat, but it's mainly around the organs. Survival mechanism. So when people have a belly sagging like that, it means their body's not surviving too well, and the adrenals are overactive. Okay. The other thing you want to know about belly fat and stress is that stress over time can accumulate belly fat as you age. So in other words, when you're 18, cortisol is at its lowest. When you get 50, 52 after menopause, that's when it's at its highest. So that's why over time you might start developing a belly unless you counter it. Okay, so that's one thing about age. But number two, all stress is accumulative. I have the worst handwriting, but just bear with me. All stress is accumulative. In other words, you're like a bucket, and your body tends to fill up with stress. You're like a sponge. So everything that ever happened to you from birth is accumulative, stress-wise, and it builds up much like a lot of applications on your desktop computer. Okay? So that's the relationship between stress, cortisol, belly fat. Now, let's get into the next problem. And the next problem with adrenal is your brain, or let's just say cognitive. It has a major problem on cognitive function. Number one, the person will do excessive thinking. They think and they think and they think and they can't turn it off. What are they doing when they're thinking? They're trying to survive. They're trying to solve problems. They're trying to evaluate the environment with their own experiences to come up with solution to problems 24/7. Sometimes it gets out of control where they're not even in control of these thoughts. They just come randomly and they can't seem to turn off. So as far as the cognitive function with adrenals, you're always on. You can't turn off. You're worrying, things like that. This eventually starts affecting your focus and your memory. Going downstairs. Where am I going? What am I looking for? Trying to find your car in the car lot. So it can really affect your focus, your attention, because thoughts no longer become in linear fashion. They come more like popcorn thoughts. They just come randomly, and it's very dispersing, and it's hard to complete things because you got all your attention into this and that and this and that. You don't feel very productive. So it affects excessive thinking, memory, focus. it affects tolerance to stress. Okay, so the more problem you have with the adrenal, the less tolerance you have to certain personality types, specifically the people that are incompetent, slow drivers, people that make mistakes. You can't tolerate these people. And some people, to the degree that the adrenal becomes so burnt out that even the sound of a ticking on a clock drives them crazy, just like tick, tick, tick. So they don't tolerate a lot of things. They don't like things out of order. Why? Because the adrenal is the survival gland, and anything non-survival, chaotic, insane, illogical, they don't deal with that too well. Okay? So they have a hard time dealing with certain things and people and all that. So that would be cognitive. Now the next one is sleep. See if I can draw. How is that? Is that pretty good? Okay, that's a little half moon. Let's see, let's draw a little star right here. And then we'll... snoozing, right? So we have sleep is the problem with adrenal. Now, when you go to sleep at night, there's what's called a circadian rhythm. And every 90 minutes, your body is supposed to go through 4 cycles of sleep. So we got 4 90-minute sleep cycles, okay? From a light sleep to a very deep sleep. The deep sleep is where you burn all of your fat, not in light sleep. In fact, 98% of all of the fat burning occurs at night and not during the day. And this would explain, with the adrenal cases, if you're not sleeping, you're not going to burn fat. So what happens? Either you can't wind down easily because your body is filled up with stress. Either you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, just totally awake, and you can't seem to fall asleep because you're not tired. In fact, you're more awake in the middle of the night than you are during the day. Or the best sleep for the adrenal is the half hour before the alarm clock goes off. That's when you can finally sleep. And just when you have to go to work, because the next day is going to be dragging. So the quality of sleep suffers with the adrenal because your body is stuck in stress. So try to sleep with a lion chasing you to some degree. It won't work. Okay? So can't burn fat, can't sleep, can't rejuvenate. Okay? Now, anytime you don't sleep, you have to be careful because you don't want to start exercising, because exercise in a too high intensity fashion can actually damage your heart. So the best exercise for the adrenal type is purely walking right now. Nothing high intensity, just getting your attention, looking at stuff, not thinking about anything. And it's going to be hard, but you can do it. All right, so we have sleep quality, the deeper sleep, that's what you need, excessive thinking, stress. And now let's talk about the next one, which is going to be, see if I can draw this here. Salt cravings. Does that look like a salt shaker? Salt cravings. That's in the form of chips, especially those little cheese, crunchy little things. They like that. They need salt late at night because you lose sodium with the adrenal stress, okay? And if we look at the purpose of sodium, it's an electrolyte. And I'm drawing a battery here. I don't know if it looks like a battery. Okay, if you could see this battery. And your body has cells that are like mini batteries that tend to be filled with certain types of minerals. They call it electrolytes. So you lose electrolytes like potassium, sodium, and even calcium, which is not electrolyte, it's just a mineral, with the adrenal. So when you lose salt, what happens is your hydration becomes a problem and your cravings for salt go way up. So one of the things you have to realize is that salt's not bad to consume if it's a sea salt. All right, so sea salt is not a problem, even for blood pressure, because if you don't have enough salt, your muscles are going to get really, really tight just from a lack of sodium. You can start twitching and things like that. So the other thing that happens with the adrenal is that your urine starts becoming very acid. Now why? Because you lose acids with the adrenal. Now, I'm sure you've heard people tell you that, well, everyone's too acid, and acid is very bad, and you need to alkalize your body. So here's this machine, and start drinking this alkaline water, right? Well, with the adrenal, it's just the opposite. You want to have more of an acidic type urine. In fact, the normal pH, or the acid level for the urine, should be about 6.5. But with the adrenal, you'll have it like a 5 or maybe even a 4, so it's too acid. Now what's happening is you're losing all these beneficial acids, and that means that your blood is becoming the opposite to alkaline. So initially it'll be too acid, and then the urine will lose all of its acids, and then the pH will start going higher, 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 higher. So we want a certain pH. We don't want it too high or too low. I'm not going to get into chemistry right now, but just realize that you lose your acid with adrenal, and guess what you're going to crave? Acid. So what foods are very acid? Probably the most acidic food would be lemons. So adrenal cases love lemon juice and water. They just crave it. They just consume tons of it. And what they really want is the acid that to try to help with this adrenal. The other thing they can consume is apple cider vinegar. That also works as well, but they definitely like lemons. So adrenal cases will crave salty foods. They will crave chocolate, lemons, sometimes a little sweet, sometimes a little combination of both. But that's what they like. All right? Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is muscles. Okay, so if you can see, this is an arm. This is my bad drawing of an arm here. That's a muscle. So what happens to muscle with the adrenal? Well, first of all, your body causes the adrenal excess will cause a situation where you break down muscles too fast. What muscle? The quadriceps femoris. The quad. What muscle is that? Your thigh. So your thigh muscles become eaten up or destroyed by that hormone. So when your thigh muscles get destroyed, your climbing is a problem, or getting up from a seated position is a difficulty, because you lose the power of standing up. Okay? So not only do you get winded when you climb stairs with the adrenal, but your muscles start getting atrophied or shrinking. And that happens to be connected to your knee. Okay? So how many people have knee problems with adrenal? Many, many people have knee issues or weakness or achiness or restless leg syndrome. It's all adrenal. The adrenal gland controls the anti-inflammatories. So So in other words, when you run out of that hormone and it becomes dysfunctional, all you get is inflammation. Because you have no more anti-inflammation or anti-inflammatory effects. So what does that show up in? Chronic pain, chronic fibromyalgia, arthritis, bursitis, tendinitis, all the itises. Okay? And one more thing about this pH. When you lose your acids, you also lose potassium. Well, guess what happens when that happens? Your blood pressure starts going up, your pulse rate starts going up. All these different issues occur. So we have a problem with low potassium, we have a problem with pain and inflammation, we have a problem with weakness in the muscle, and then what happens is, because you're not sleeping, the heart has to work really, really, really hard. So what does it do? It anchors itself to the breastbone here, okay, and the back, the upper back. So guess where your muscle is going to be all tense? Right up in here in the back. You're going to have tense shoulders. And people will give you a massage, but it comes right back because the cause is a tired heart. Okay? It will also cause tension in the neck as well. So the muscles become a problem. Loose skin, collagen. Collagen is the glue that holds everything together. So it's like when you lose your collagen, your joints fall apart, your skin starts getting loose, and your arms, your back of your arms, the inner thighs, the lower part of the belly, underneath the neck. Other than that, you're perfectly fine. I'm being sarcastic. So we got a problem with excessive stress, excessive thinkiness, fluid retention. Fluid retention in the ankles. We have a problem with blood pressure. High cholesterol could happen eventually. Acid reflux, ulcers, diabetes, low vitamin D levels. This is all adrenal. And sinus, okay? Because what they did is they took the adrenal glands, they removed them from certain dogs in an experiment, and these dogs end up with all sorts of allergies to everything in the sinus. So the adrenals are anti-inflammatory and anti-allergy. I mean, isn't this some of the most common problems that people have? The adrenal gland also controls the blood flow, the constriction, the blood flow to the heart. And a lot of times when the heart, when the adrenal gland gets burnt out, the coronary, the blood supply of the heart starts tightening up a little bit, and you might get chest pain, but you get tested and everything comes out normal because it's the adrenal. I mean, think about when the heart stops, what do they inject the heart with? Adrenaline. That's one of the adrenal hormones. All right? So these are some of the characteristics of the adrenal body type. Now here's the problem. The problem in medicine, actually in healthcare, is that there is no real evaluation other than emergency care where you break a bone, they take an x-ray. What happens is that they're associating the symptom with the problem. They will take each individual symptom and treat it directly. They don't look at what's behind it. They don't look at this. They wait for this to show up on a blood test. Well, guess what? The adrenal has an enormous functional reserve, and I'm paraphrasing from a book called SIBA, Encyclopedia of Endocrinology. It says the adrenal gland has an enormous functional reserve. Indeed, the adrenal gland has to become, let's say 9/10 of the adrenal gland has to be unresponsive before it's clinically manifest. And what does that mean? It means that it has to be 90% destroyed before it even shows up on a blood test. So the problem is they go, well, let's wait and see. Let's check you and see. Everything comes out normal. You're healthy. Just lose weight. And let's wait and see until you become a full-blown problem with the adrenal. So these are just, what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to diagnose you. I'm trying to give you educational information so you can think with the information yourself. This is your body. You need to be aware of the relationship between the function of that or the dysfunction of that and the rest of these symptoms. So symptoms should only be used as clues to find the real reason why something is the way it is. Okay, so I hope that gives you an understanding of the adrenal and the characteristics that can follow from that. So now the question is, what do we do about the adrenal gland? What do we do about this stress? Well, we do know that all stress is accumulative. So we do know like your body is like a bucket and we have to extract the stress. So what I've been doing for the last 24 years is developing systems and techniques to extract this stress out. So I created a couple different courses and they're do-it-yourself programs. One is a very short PDF file to show you how to do these maneuvers, and then another one is a series of videos that are more comprehensive. And it's all based on this acupressure device that I had built based on my fingers, okay, when I work on people. And I actually build this for myself, and I said, well, wait a second, why don't I actually teach people how to do it? And so that's what I did. So it has, it's a tripod, so it actually kind of sits right here, it sits right here, and so you can lay on it and put like your neck like right here, and it really will help you extract stress using gravity. And so there's about 7 places in your body that you're holding 99% of all the stress. So you're going to be learning how to use this to extract the stress. It's totally okay to experience stress as long as you can get rid of it every day. That's the goal. So you would do this before you go to bed. In fact, I do it every night, about 5 minutes. You go through the maneuvers, we show you how to do it, it's really easy, and you go right into a nice sleep. You will feel wonderful from this. So this is a device. There's 2 different courses. One is the real short little thing on a PDF, and the other one's a big course that shows you all the videos. If you really want to learn this well, you can do it. And by the way, there's a 60-day money-back guarantee. If this doesn't blow you away, if it doesn't amaze you, go ahead and send it back. I'll give you a 100% refund. In fact, even if it's after 60 days, I'll definitely give you a 100% refund, because Thus far, I've never had anyone return these because they really love them, because I had a guy on a plane, everyone was watching him do these maneuvers because he was flying back to India, and it really saved him the jet lag. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this, and I think you will.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.